Exodus chapter 23, verse 4. If you meet your enemy's ox, or his ass going astray, you shall surely bring it back to him again. Hi, welcome to the Silver Spleen. My name is Wilhelm Schnauzer, and this is my review of Paws Men. Paws Men director Ao Chuk-man apparently had a hand in writing 2013's Lan Kwai Fong 3, but I can forgive him for that, because he was also the executive director of 2014's May We Chat. He's probably best known for 2015's The Gigolo, which he wrote and directed. I enjoyed that movie quite a bit for what we can honestly say are no good reasons. But never mind. Hong Kong cinema is, generally speaking, populist. But there has always been what you might call a socially conscious thread in local cinema. Movies that take a hard look at subjects that most people would rather ignore. 1992's Cage Man is a good example of how a movie can be both socially conscious and dramatically entertaining. An Hui is probably the best known socially conscious director in Hong Kong. I respect and admire her films a great deal, but that doesn't mean I ever want to watch Night and Fog again. Digression, Ao Chuk-man appeared in An Hui's 2008 film The Way We Are. It's a very difficult task to create a film that's got a socially relevant topic, but manages to be, for lack of a better word, commercial. Now, in recent years, Hong Kong has produced an interesting assortment of films, but there's also been quite a few small, very good, very local films that have touched on serious issues while being, for me anyway, still very watchable and entertaining. Mad World, Happiness, Men on the Dragon, and Javon Zhao's latest film, Distinction, have all been very local films that are, in their own ways, deadly serious, but thankfully aren't didactic. Paws Men is didactic, but only in the sense that it's trying to push a really simple agenda. Don't be shitty to dogs. Some of you might be wondering why this message needs to be told at all in the 21st century. Well, it's because not everyone got the memo, including Hong Kong's government. Digression, almost 30 years later, the kinds of living spaces shown in Cage Man still exist in Hong Kong. But never mind that. Paws Men tells the story of a group of volunteers who do everything they can to help dogs. Stray dogs, dogs with bad owners, injured dogs, it doesn't matter. Now, Paws Men isn't high art, although it wasn't supposed to be, and it is, in places, some pretty rough filmmaking. That said, the cinematography is not only good, but actually pretty interesting in some places. More than once I found myself asking, how did they do that shot? Because you can tell this was not a, Steadicam level production. Some of the wound makeup on the dogs isn't very convincing, but when you have the risk of your actors gnawing it off between takes, the most glaring technical shortfalls in Paws Men are in the sound department. More than once there's noises that just really shouldn't be there. But I think it's important to keep in mind that this movie is a labor of love by somebody who didn't have a lot of money or a very big crew. And if I'm gonna be fair, any of the technical gaffes in this movie can be much more easily forgiven than some of the errors I've seen in big budget films by so-called professional filmmakers. And while I am saying that watching Paws Men requires you to be mildly charitable, this shouldn't be considered a charity watch. There are legitimate rewards for watching this movie beyond simply endorsing its central message. The main cast are, as far as I can tell, non-actors, but they are all very convincing in their own ways, and they're all very watchable. Put it this way, there are veteran actors in the film, but they don't overshadow these other people at all. Isabel Chan and Lam Su-ying are very, very entertaining in small roles, especially because they're both so just real and believable. Like everyone else in the movie, they convey a sense of real life truth that's it's almost documentary. No one in this movie sounds like they're reading lines. They're just speaking to one another. Paws Men has a lot of great small-scale humor that's based on the kinds of things people would actually say to each other in real life. Bob Lam deserves special mention for his role as a restaurant owner who may or may not be a complete piece of human waste. Bob manages to walk that really thin, weird line between likable and unlikable, and it's a lot of fun to watch. The same can't be said of Tats Lau, but only because of the nature of his character. His story isn't fun to watch, but you can't look away. I was really seriously impressed by his performance in Paws Men. I also think Tats Lau could and should be nominated for some kind of supporting actor award. I'm not going to hold my breath in that department, but I will say this. His performance alone makes this movie worth watching. And as I said before, it's definitely not the only reason to watch this movie either. I even have to admit, my favorite actors in this movie aren't even actors. They're dogs. More than once, the dogs steal a scene, and it's almost too much fun to see. This dog has better acting chops than half the people who work for EEG. And he'll work for Pork Chops too. But I'm going to leave that line of wordplay before it turns on us. But since we're in the neighborhood, there's a subplot about dog adoption that's very interesting. There's some things going on as far as characters, dialogue, and observations go. But the thing I remember about it most clearly, for better or for worse, is that the dog in question in the adoption subplot is always visibly uncomfortable with the actor who plays the character that wants to adopt it. Now, it's obviously not intentional, but given the details of the story, I just found it inappropriately entertaining to see this dog's reaction to a character that kept talking about how much love he had for the dog, because the dog wants none of it. I really am a terrible human being. And if you watch the movie, you'll kind of see why. Now, I watched this film at a screening at a local university. There was a Q&A with the director afterwards, and while my Cantonese is essentially non-existent, I could at least understand, I think, that the movie cost less than $500,000 Hong Kong dollars, which would be around 50 to 60,000 US. And I could also see that this movie and its subject meant a lot to the director. He really, really believes in it, and it was important to him, and I really respected that. And I think that's why he includes an epilogue to this film that can only be described as brutal. It's a collection of footage of real dogs and the kinds of terrible things that happen to them. Luckily, it was in black and white and not in color, but I still hid behind my hands for most of it because I really don't like seeing that stuff. Paws Men isn't a great film, but it's a better film than it should be, especially given its budget and schedule, and it's a movie very worth watching for quite a few different and very good reasons. Paws Men isn't a movie for everybody, but if you think you would enjoy it, or if you think it's an interesting idea, I definitely encourage you to watch it. I have no idea if it's ever going to make a DVD release, but hopefully it would at least be on video on demand. So do me a favor, when you get a chance to watch this movie, do it by kicking in a little money. At the very least, you won't have stolen it. And as long as we're going to talk about money, please do me a favor, click on my Patreon page, because you could have access to exclusive content and you could feel good about supporting someone that's done this for 5 years and hasn't really seen that many rewards. But, you know, if you feel like it, I would really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this review, please let me know. And if you didn't, let me know. If you enjoy the channel, please subscribe, because I just recently broke 10,000 subscribers, and you know what that means. Now I gotta get to 100,000. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon.